Hello everyone and welcome back to Driver Korea. We are here for the Zandvoort round, the Dutch Grand Prix of the 2022 season. And this one's going to be an interesting one. Zandvoort is a pretty tricky circuit. So yeah, I don't know how things are going to go here. Of course, as always, we begin with the Pirelli Hot Lap Challenge. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. Sometimes this can give a little bit of an indication of how the weekend is going to play out. Usually these are relatively easy, but actually really struggled with this one. And yeah, I just couldn't get round in time, or couldn't cover enough distance. This is the checkpoint challenge, meaning our ranking comes from how much distance we can cover. And yeah, I was pushing pretty hard towards the end, but unfortunately I just could not get far enough around to get the gold this time, and we got to run out of time. So yeah, I think for the first time in a Pirelli Hot Lap Challenge, it's only silver, but regardless, that gives us a little acclaim boost either way. And you can see where the next checkpoint was. We were nowhere near it, so that really is the best I could do there. But anyway, that's that out of the way. Let's move on to the race weekend itself and get to the stuff that really matters. But anyway, after practice we get a bunch of resource points. Brings us up to almost 2,000 in total, 1,902 to be precise. And of course the discounts all come on as well for the upgrades that we have available to us, but the upgrades now, you know, some of the major upgrades we have available are so expensive that you know, these little 3% discounts that we get for each practice program bonus, we just it barely makes a difference. Of course, you know, the more you do, and the more practice sessions you do, it does build up over you know, some time, but that takes quite a while to have a significant impact. But over the course of the season, I'm sure it does. But anyway, we are going to purchase an upgrade to the fuel flow regulator. That is a major fuel efficiency upgrade. That will be on the car in time. Unfortunately not for Monza, but it will be on the car in time for Singapore, which is a very long race in terms of its total time typically, so it could be quite important there. We have put our last line of componentry in for all the components. We have 3 in our allowance for the season, so yeah, it may be a tiny bit early. We've got 8 races to go, so you know, the 2/3 mark of the season will be some way into this race. So yeah, we'll just evaluate when we get to the final 2 rounds, and you know, see which components have the least wear, and hope that we can you know, get through those. But anyway, we get going for qualifying then. I did show the R&D chart briefly. We continue to fall away from the top 5, so it could be a bit of a struggle here, but we do get through into Q2 with relative ease, up in P6 at the moment. But I have recently had a tendency to go better in Q1, and then everyone else kind of speeds up a little bit more throughout the sessions. Yuki gets through as well. He was actually reasonably quick in practice, was Yuki Tsunoda, so I'm hoping there's a slim chance he might be able to get into Q3, but either way, there's a little bit of a surprise knockout in Q1, that being Mick Schumacher joining his fellow German driver Sebastian Vettel in the bottom 5. Also knocked out, of course, as always, are the 2 Williams cars and Zhou Guanyu. But Lance Stroll getting through into Q2, so good job in the Aston Martin there for Stroll. We move on into to the end of Q2, I should say, and we actually go a little bit better in Q2. Strangely enough, we improve our time to a 13.9. which is pretty decent. Unfortunately, Tsunoda does get knocked out, but he was pretty much ahead of everyone he should be in terms of our relative car performance. He beat the Williams, the Aston Martins and the Haas's, and one of the Alfa Romeos, but Valtteri Bottas showing that that car is still reasonably capable and getting himself up inside that top 10. So once again, Bottas doing a really great job in an Alfa Romeo car that has not been able to keep up in the development race. But yeah, Danny Rick knocked out in Q2 along with Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, Kevin Magnussen, and the Canadian Lance Stroll will start from 15th position. Good effort to get into Q2 though for Stroll. We continue on then into Q3, and we've actually got Valtteri Bottas not too far up the road, though we've already had a rough start to this lap, getting caught up on the inside curb there of the left-hander, but also just running deep at turn 1, not getting through the banking grade either. So it's been a rough first sector on our first flyer in Q3, but we'll see what we can do, and we might still be able to pull a decent lap out of it if I can string the middle sector together. But really tight on the inside on the way in there, and ended up wobbling all the way out over the exit curb, so that was no good. And yeah, that essentially is probably this lap in the bin. But yeah, you can see you know, even after doing a few laps in qualifying, really struggling. I felt actually in a pretty decent rhythm in Q2. I felt fairly comfortable, but as was the case I think back in Austria, when I felt really good in Q2, in Q3 it just doesn't quite feel the same for whatever reason. Whether it's just this set of tyres are a bit funky or what, I don't know. The track conditions might have changed, a bit more rubber down, I'm not sure, but somehow the car just feels a little bit different to what it does in Q2, and I'm just not quite in the flow with it. And an awkward line through turn 1 there, though a bit better than on our first lap, and we are gaining. We get through the next couple of corners pretty nicely, and get a nice run through the banking as well. So this is going to be a much better lap despite having a little bit of wear on these tyres. It's a relatively short circuit, so it shouldn't be too punishing on the tyres to do a second flyer. And yeah, we try to grab a little bit of slipstream on the way to the line, and that lap will put us into P6 ahead of Charles Leclerc, as well as Hamilton and Norris down in 9th and 10th. So yeah, that is a bizarre one. They are a long way down. We look to the track map to see them coming back out on circuit. We're going to stay in pit lane. We're not going to do another flying lap. We'll save that next set of soft tyres for the race, perhaps, if we can. But yeah, Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton need to improve here. And as we go on board with Lando Norris, he hasn't found too much time. He's finding a minor improvement in the first sector, but it could certainly be better for Lando Norris. Let's see what happens in the middle sector. We'll be coming up to it in a few seconds' time along what can vaguely be described as a back straight. And the middle sector is a little bit average as well, so yeah, nothing too crazy coming from Lando Norris on board with Lewis Hamilton, who is finding maybe a little bit more time than Norris. He's on a better lap just by a tenth or two as we go on board with Lando Norris to the line. Is he going to gain any positions? He moves up into P9, but Hamilton was on a better lap, so we'll see what the Mercedes driver can do. It's 9th for Hamilton, who improves back ahead of Lando Norris as Charles Leclerc moves up into P6 at the end of the session.
And with qualifying complete, let's review our top 3 today. Russell, Sainz and Max Verstappen. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
Well, I was so enthralled by the battle at the back of the top 10, I wasn't watching what was happening at the front, and George Russell had actually managed to put in the best time of the session, and thereby qualifies on pole position. Awesome work by George Russell. Carlos Sainz was able to put his Ferrari in second position, so no Red Bulls on the front row. Verstappen third. He'll be disappointed with that qualifying effort at his home race, just ahead of Sergio Perez. Fernando Alonso, great qualifying in P5 ahead of Charles Leclerc, who salvaged P6 at the end of the session. P7 for myself, we out-qualify Valtteri Bottas. Underwhelming performance from Hamilton and Norris on the 5th row. Let's get into the race.
For years, the passionate Dutch fans have been easy to find trackside in races across Europe. Here this weekend, it's even easier to find the Dutch fans as they have a race to call their own once again. A warm welcome to all of our viewers in the Netherlands and around the globe, of course, as we get underway for the Dutch Grand Prix. A lap of this short 2.6 mile Zandvoort circuit features 14 corners, 10 to the right and 4 to the left, with a 678 metre main straight heading into turn 1, Tarzan Corner. And on that straight with DRS open, that'll be the best overtaking opportunity on this track. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. It's Carlos Sainz in pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Perez, Fernando Alonso, Charles Leclerc, the scientist, Bottas, Ricciardo, Russell. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty, and Esteban Ocon, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Lance Stroll and Vettel, Mick Schumacher, Latifi and Sir Lewis Hamilton. They've taken a grid penalty, and Lando Norris, Albon and Guan Yu Zhou. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Natalie Pinkham. Now, our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching for as they go down into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get a clean start. And this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space. And finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Well, here we are on the grid, ready to go racing for the Dutch Grand Prix. A bunch of grid penalties again. The 2 Mercedes cars penalised down the order, as well as Lando Norris, Alexander Albon and Zhou Guanyu, all taking grid penalties in this race. That's elevated us a little bit higher up the field, with George Russell dropping away, and might give an opportunity for some of the other midfielders if Hamilton gets caught up in traffic. It's not a great circuit to be taking grid penalties, so yeah, it's going to be a tough recovery for Hamilton in particular, but we'll see how it all plays out. But in terms of strategy, it is going to be a 2-stop soft tyres to 2 sets of mediums, and yeah, hopefully that'll work out nicely for us. 5 red lights are on, and it's lights out, and away we go for the Dutch Grand Prix. After a pretty long hold on the grid, we're up and racing down the inside of Charles Leclerc. Straight away, we're deep into turn 1. We almost run into the back of Sergio Perez, but we managed to keep our front wing intact there as we're side by side. Valtteri Bottas making a nice start to this race as well. Both of us jumping Charles Leclerc, who was out high and wide, thanks to us going a little bit deep into turn 1, but it was all clean and fair, and we've made a couple of moves, or made one move up into P5 now, starting out of initially P7, P6 after Russell's grid penalty, and now into P5. So, a bit awkward a couple of times over the curbs so far on this lap, so we are really putting the floor at risk as Bottas has a bit of a moment behind us, a bit unsure of where we were going, I think, in that situation, but Valtteri Bottas keeping things under control. As we continue on back on board with myself, it's been a good start to this race. We're tucked in behind Fernando Alonso, and I think Fernando is probably going to be the car to beat for us in this race. If we can beat Fernando Alonso, the Alpine car higher on the R&D chart, so if we beat the Alpine, that will be a very good day in the office. But yeah, the fact we've jumped Leclerc at the start is very nice.
No tyre concerns at the moment, just focus on the driving.
No damage to the car so far in this race, which is perfect. I was a little bit concerned with how aggressive we were over some of the curbs on the opening lap, but yeah, we've managed to get away with it so far. But as we continue on, a bit of a moment into the banking, and that allows Charles Leclerc to slip through on the inside. Not really a big deal. Leclerc's not our fight today. I don't think there's any reasonable way we could, believe we could beat the Ferraris on pace today. But George Russell might be a different story. He's starting on the medium tyres, so it'll be interesting to see what strategy Mercedes are deploying there. But he makes the move around the outside of Valtteri Bottas, and the Finnish driver dropping down the order, although to be fair, he's only lost places to front-running cars so far, as Alonso is under pressure there as well. A little bit of a moment for the Spaniard. But this is the intriguing battle at the moment. Valtteri Bottas leads Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda in the battle for 8th down to 11th. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here with the DRS open. Daniel Ricciardo goes for the move. He moves up ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Ocon as well around the outside of the Finn. So Bottas getting swamped. Yuki Tsunoda with nowhere to go, unfortunately. And it looks like Bottas was actually able to hold off Ocon there. So good job by the Sauber driver. Here's the onboard with Yuki Tsunoda. He followed Bottas through as Ocon went deep. He almost got the drive to get past Ocon, but just not quite enough. And Esteban Ocon was able to hold off Yuki Tsunoda there. But as we go back on board with myself, we've got George Russell for company. So we've got a few battles playing out on circuit at the moment. We show Russell the tight inside line, but he sends it down the inside, and no issue there for George. He's through, and
Okay, focus. We need to stay on form.
once again, not really our fight today, but it'll be interesting to see how that strategy plays out for George Russell, as that's a lock-up just ahead of Esteban Ocon. Valtteri Bottas struggling at the moment in this phase of the race. He's not in a good rhythm, and he's being hounded by a lot of cars behind. We go for the move down the inside of George Russell into turn 1 with the DRS. So yeah, Russell didn't really pick the best moment to make that move. We were able to slip straight back past at the first opportunity. So we were aggressive on the brakes, quite deep, but Russell tried the switch back, and a little bit of contact there actually on the switchback there for Russell. So he couldn't quite get the car tucked into the inside as well as he would have liked to, as Esteban Ocon gets the move done on Valtteri Bottas. Can Tsunoda get through as well? Round the outside of Bottas goes Tsunoda, as it's Alfa Romeo versus AlphaTauri. Tsunoda trying to get through versus Valtteri Bottas. Side by side they continue to go, and Yuki Tsunoda gets through. Nice move by the Japanese driver, and follows Ocon through. That's critical, and hopefully Bottas might be able to hold up those behind for a little bit longer and give Tsunoda some breathing room, but looked like he had pace to burn nonetheless. We lose that place to George Russell once more. Not really a surprise. He got it done into turn 1 that time, and yeah, there's not much we can do in response.
Be careful. We think you're going to start losing some tyre grip anytime now.
Soft tyres are starting to hit the cliff as well, so those mediums for George Russell that he started the race on, as well as Lewis Hamilton, who is buried in the pack at the moment. Here is Hamilton, incidentally, as well as Lando Norris. They both have a lot of work to do in this race if they want to score points. But what's going on here? Vettel with a huge moment, and he is lucky to keep that out of the barriers. The Aston Martin was pointing every direction he didn't want it to go. Here's the onboard with Sebastian Vettel, and an awkward little move by Lando Norris as he had a peek down the inside of Valtteri Bottas, and Vettel just a little bit jumpy responding to that, got himself offline on the curbs. Here's the view from Norris. It would look like nothing from Norris on board, but yeah, Vettel just was awkwardly tucked in behind. Lewis Hamilton was so close to getting caught up in that. He slammed the brakes on and then had to avoid Vettel as he almost came back onto the circuit. Thankfully Vettel got a stop, so great job by both of those drivers. The forces of nature were doing everything they could to bring them together, but thankfully they managed to stay apart. Mick Schumacher a good job as well not to plough into the back of Lewis Hamilton, who was slamming the brakes on quite suddenly there in response. Lando Norris, the onboard looking rearward, and there was slight contact there from the Vettel car to the back of Norris, so a really awkward exchange. Hopefully no damage done. It was very light, but it was enough to tip that Aston Martin over the edge and yeah, take it towards the inside barrier. But anyway, into the pit lane we come then to end our first stint, and I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty happy to say goodbye to these soft compound tyres. And
That was a fantastic stop, faster than we were expecting.
This car, I feel like it really comes alive on the mediums.
Okay, stay clear of the white line on the exit. We'll receive a penalty for dangerous driving if you cross onto the track.
I don't know what it is about the medium. As we almost cross the pit exit line, we don't get pinged for it, which is nice. So we'll just hope the stewards didn't see that, because I'm fairly certain those left side wheels were over the pit exit line there. So you just don't tell anyone about that. But yeah, we continue to push on.
So we're leading our teammate by 10.2 seconds.
Nicholas Latifi in front, and we're getting held up by the Canadian, who hasn't made a pit stop yet in this race. We're going to see if we can switch it back to the inside, get good drive traction out of the banking, side by side through this very awkward section. A slight touch as we swing across in front of Nicholas Latifi, and we get the move done on the Canadian. Here's the onboard with the Williams driver, and yeah, we'll see what it looked like from his perspective. Little bit of contact, he had a little bit of space to work with there, but we did give him a pretty awkward line as we were a little bit wide of the ideal racing line through there. But nice run through the first corner for us there, and that gets us ahead of the McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo, who tried the overcut on us as we were stuck in traffic. So it almost worked well there for Ricciardo, but we managed to stay in front, and that is critical. Oh, that is Yuki Tsunoda into the back of Sebastian Vettel, and that's front wing damage for Tsunoda, and that'll bring an end to what was potentially a points-paying day for our teammate. What a shame. And a shame for Alex Albon, who will not see the checkered flag at all. Mechanical failure for the tyre driver. DRS open for us though towards turn 1 as we catch up to Mick Schumacher, and the Haas's and Mercedes both starting on the medium tyres, all 4 of their cars.
Good job, nice overtake.
Between those two teams, so they're going a bit longer in the first stint than everyone else. Interesting to see if Haas can make something work in terms of the mid-pack fight. But DRS open for us. We don't even need it to pass Kevin Magnussen there, and yeah, we are already through. We continue on then. Hamilton comes into the pits, and we'll jump the Brit. He moves on to another set of the medium compound tyres at the end of the first stint, so yeah, they'll have to use the softs or hards at some point.
Okay, Russell stopping now.
And yeah, it'll be interesting to see which way Mercedes go with that final stop. There's George Russell coming out of the pits in front of us. We send it around the outside, down the inside into the banking, and a twitch halfway through as we're trying to get the power down. And we get the move done on George Russell, and we just about hold on to that position by the smallest of margins. But that was an aggressive move. I knew if there's any chance of us finishing ahead of Russell in this race, we had to get it done there. But Russell's on fresh mediums now, so we could be in a bit of trouble. But like I started to say earlier, oh, you can see how big of a moment we had there. George Russell got excited for a moment. He tried to dive it down on the inside on the exit, but he ended up with having a moment himself there. And unfortunately for him, not able to get through as we begin to work our way through some lap traffic. Relatively early in this race for lap traffic. We're only halfway through. Or not even, so yeah, this is intriguing, but unfortunately among the lap traffic is our teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who has just had a torrid time recently in this race. It was all going so well until the first pit stop cycle, but anyway, we continue to push on because we are catching up to Fernando Alonso as the lapped cars continue to play ball. They're doing a nice job to not get in the way of the battle so far, and we are closing in to Fernando Alonso. I started to say earlier that our car it never responds well to the soft compound tyres, but it absolutely comes alive on the mediums, and we particularly on this compound can do quite well, and we can extract a little bit more pace than what we can on the softs. I almost am sometimes tempted to qualify on the mediums, but I just don't think that's really going to be a reasonable strategy. I just don't think that the tyre grip will be enough, but the car just feels so much more comfortable to drive on this compound, and yeah, I very quickly got into a rhythm. Alonso dives off into pit lane though, so we won't get to make that move on track, although I do believe it was coming. But we'll see how this next section of the race it plays
We're
out.
approaching the pit window, and you're going to be on mediums.
Trying to get a little bit of slipstream from the lapped car there of Zhou Guanyu. He wasn't playing ball though, he was just trying to stay out of the way, but we did get the DRS. But I'm pushing on a few laps after Alonso's pit stop because I noticed he came out in traffic.
First position, front of the pack.
And now we are into the race leaders. Everyone else has made their final pit stop with the exception of the medium tyre starters. So we come into the pits now then, and we'll see what we can do in the final stint. New set of tyres go on the car.
Perfect job on the turn in there, mate. Looks like a nice stop time. We're happy with that one.
And yeah, hopefully we can have a
Pit
strong end
strategy complete. See these tyres through to the end now.
to this race as we just carefully navigate our way out of pit lane. There's not a lot of margin for error there on the pit exit here, so we just have to nurse the car out of pit lane a little bit to make sure we don't make contact with any of the barriers there. There's not a lot of or the very close proximity to the racing line or the pit line there, but anyway, we are back out racing on circuit and back up to speed as Sergio Perez retires from the race with a mechanical failure. What a shame for Sergio Perez, and his race comes to an abrupt end at turn 1. No safety car though, we continue to race on, but immediately out of pits I am struggling for pace. That actually mechanical failure happened while we were in pit lane incidentally, but a big moment there on the exit of the left-hander onto the back straight, and Fernando Alonso's peeking down the inside. He had the DRS open as we give him some space on the apex, but we should be okay to hold on through the left-hander, and we will manage to maintain that position. But here's the onboard with Fernando Alonso, and he was as late as he could reasonably be on the brakes to still give us some space on the inside of the next corner, and yeah, we were able to hold him off. So yeah, we've jumped Fernando Alonso there. Oh, Lance Stroll into the barrier. My goodness, that came out of nowhere. What happened to the Canadian driver here? A big spin and a big crash, and I think the throttle was jammed wide open on the Lance Stroll car there. The engine revving out as he spun, and that is going to be a safety car. My goodness, there it is. Right.
Gotta give that position back, mate. We're under safety car conditions and you can't overtake. Return the position.
As we were catching Tsunoda again, right next to the safety car there. Obviously, we can't make that overtake, but yeah, we had to pick the gap there as we got up to them quite quickly. But
Okay,
yeah.
You've got P5. Russell's ahead of you now. Our gap to the car in front is 19.4 seconds. They're on old mediums. That's Alonso behind. Less than a second separates you. They're on fresh mediums. The distance to the leader is 29.0 seconds. That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops. Let's go. Okay, you've got 25 laps to go. Okay, slow down. Your delta's negative, which means you're going too fast. Reduce your pace.
Cheers, Mark. This safety car has fallen at an awkward time for the Mercedes cars, and George Russell, I believe, is going to have to move on to a less than ideal compound, and he's actually been jumped by Lewis Hamilton, who's not made his final stop yet. Okay, that makes a lot more sense, but Russell onto the hard compound tyres. It's too long to go for the softs, but you'd be crazy not to take the safety car.
Okay, let's get ready to go racing again. The safety car is in this lap. When the field accelerates, remember, there's no overtaking until the timing line. Safety car in this lap.
But, I mean, you could probably make the softs work, but an ideal soft tyre stint would be around 15 laps or so. So, yeah, intriguing strategy. Let's see if the hard tyres work for George Russell, as we're already getting racy on the restart, because we have lapped cars to clear before we can go charging after those ahead. We switch to the outside line,
Clear.
and immediately the lap cars move out the way. Thank you very much. And we are trying to break clear of Fernando Alonso a bit deep into turn 1 as we charge around the outside, looking for an opportunity on Leclerc, but there's no way we can outrun the Ferrari on the outside line there. But we are looking high and low, just trying to stay out of the dirty air, trying different lines, but nothing really working for us there. And you know, the opportunity the brief opportunity that might have existed on the restart has now evaporated as we go on board with Mick Schumacher. A bit of contact with one of the Alfa Romeos there. That, I believe, is Zhou Guanyu, who was just doing his best to stay out of the way. But unfortunately, Schumacher just caught in the wrong spot there and just made a bit of contact with Zhou Guanyu. So that's a shame for Mick Schumacher. There might be a bit of damage to that front wing. Back on board with myself then as we wind our way through the final sector, and looks like we're doing okay versus the Ferrari so far. They haven't got too far up the road, and I am begging them to start squabbling. I'm hoping the DRS gets enabled soon enough and they can start fighting with each other and bring me back into this battle. We've just stretched away from Fernando Alonso in the second half of that lap, so that's worked out nicely for us as into the pits comes Mick Schumacher, and that's a front wing change and an unscheduled stop for Mick Schumacher. So yeah, that's a real shame for the German. He'll have to reset and go again next time out at Monza. But anyway, back on board with myself, we've got Charles Leclerc.
DRS has been enabled. DRS is now enabled.
Well and truly in sight, as the Ferraris, they haven't done any wheel-to-wheel racing.
Dropping back by about 3/10 a lap. Well done.
But Sainz has just thrown the odd defensive waft here and there, and it looks like Leclerc has the better pace of the two. So despite Sainz putting that car in the front row, Leclerc starting down in P6 after a struggle in Q3. Looks like Leclerc has the better race pace at this stage and is able to put the pressure on. So I'm hoping these two fight, but so long as Leclerc has the DRS, it's going to be very difficult for me to make an impact. But I think Sainz is lacking pace at the moment, because we realistically should not be keeping up with these two. So the fact that we are sort of shows I think Sainz is not running at optimal pace. But I think Leclerc is doing a nice job being a rear gunner, because he is not attacking Sainz at all. And yeah, it seems like the Ferraris are pretty content to stay where they are. They're second and third, so this is huge constructors points for them, incidentally. So yeah, it could be pretty interesting to see how they continue to play this one, as we get a little bit out of shape there, a graze with the barrier as that curve just upset the car, and that could have ended so much worse. The curbs around this circuit are so aggressive as we slow it down slightly on the replay. My goodness, that could have ended our race then and there if we hit that wall at a more acute angle, but thankfully we managed to get away with it. We continue to race on, and yeah, we'll see if we can do anything about the Ferraris. I just can't make an impact. I'm pushing as hard as I can. I'm throwing everything at it. Our car is feeling amazing at this stage of the race. Chasing down these two Ferraris is kind of crazy, but unfortunately we just don't have that last little bit of pace we need to really make an impact. We can keep up, but every time, you know, there's a little mistake and we drop back, it takes quite a while to sort of reel ourselves back in. So we don't quite have the pace difference enough to make an impact, and I think Charles Leclerc is probably in a better position pace-wise, and is intentionally sort of just playing rear gunner to Carlos Sainz. So yeah, it's making things very difficult for us. Really want to get another podium, of course, that would be amazing, but I mean, we are really quite rapidly pulling away from Fernando Alonso behind, and you know, we couldn't keep up with Alonso in the first stint as a comparison, so it really shows how much this car just loves the medium tyres. We've got a run here, but we can't do anything with it. There was a brief glimmer of hope. We had a beautiful run through the banking there as Leclerc was held up in the dirty air, but it wasn't to be, as we continue to race on. Unfortunately, we just sort of dropped away after that. We had a bit of a moment through the grass. We got away with it and managed to keep things on track without any floor damage. But yeah, I got caught up on the inside curb of the left-hander and just sort of upset the whole run through that next sequence. Caught a huge amount of curb, the car bouncing across the racetrack, and then yeah, it just sent us wide into the grass. But we kept it out of the barriers. We were on a very awkward angle coming into the left-hander here, but thankfully the banking helped us get around and get it turned and lined up for the next section of track. So yeah, we got away with that one, but yeah, in the closing stages, that's about as hard as we dare push.
Final lap of the race.
Unfortunately, that really was the nail in the coffin for any chance we had of chasing down the Ferraris once again, but I think they had a little bit
enough fuel for 3 more laps.
A little bit better tyre life towards the end of the race, because I really started to struggle and just couldn't stay as consistent as they were. So they've handled the pressure well. We tried everything we could, but it wasn't enough. Meanwhile, out in front, Max Verstappen. Qualifying didn't go to plan, but the points are handed out on Sunday, and it's a Dutch Grand Prix victory for Max Verstappen. Home race glory for the Red Bull driver. Awesome stuff by him. 4th place for us is not bad.
And that's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
That is another mega result from this season. Strategy today was perfect. I don't think that could have gone any better.
What a great race then, and a magnificent victory here at the Dutch Grand Prix. So Natalie, what do you think helped them deliver this result?
I'd say it was down once again to good, consistent driving, nailing the corners, working to the track conditions and perfecting the team strategies. They got all those things right today, and the results speak for themselves.
Here come today's winners. The team at Red Bull have done a phenomenal job recently, and it's clear to see that they've put in the work, and they should be so proud of the victory they've secured here.
Well, it is home glory for Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz finishes in P2, Charles Leclerc making it a double podium for Ferrari with 3rd.
So let's review the drivers' standings. Max Verstappen should be pleased with his performance, making gains at the top of the table. So then, Natalie Pinkham, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
It's got to be Lando Norris, hasn't it? Smooth, confident and assured. I've got no doubt that he and his team are going to be over the moon with his performance today.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. The lead at the top comes down after a strong weekend from the challenging pack. There was also a strong showing from the McLaren team today as they make their way up the standings. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
Alrighty, unfortunately no highlights reel today because the game crashed during the race once again. But anyway, let's see how everyone finished in the top 10. It was Verstappen ahead of Sainz and Leclerc. Good day for Ferrari, scoring more points than anyone else. Myself P4 ahead of Fernando Alonso. So a great day for Alpine. Also a good day for McLaren with P6 and 7 for Ricciardo and Norris. They outscore us in the team's championship thanks to that result. P8 for Lewis Hamilton, who took the fastest lap. 9th for George Russell, so not a great day for Mercedes, 8th and 9th. And rounding out the top 10 is the other Alpine of Esteban Ocon. Bottas just misses out on points, as do the Haas's. Tsunoda recovered into P14 by the end of that race. So, yeah, tough day for our teammates. But still beat Vettel, who was the car he crashed into the back of in that race, which is kind of crazy. In terms of the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen now leads by over 100 points over Sergio Perez, 109 points to be precise. 127 back to Charles Leclerc in 3rd. Carlos Sainz in 3rd rather. Charles Leclerc is down in 5th, a little bit further adrift, but only 4 points between Sainz and Hamilton, 3rd and 4th in the championship. So yeah, the fight for 2nd, 3rd and 4th is probably really where the battle is at. Drivers' Championship wise, we are ahead of George Russell by 25 points. The only one of the lead team drivers that we are in front of. in terms of the team's championship. Red Bull now 170 points ahead of Ferrari, so they would have closed that margin in just slightly in that race, but Red Bull have pretty much got it covered, I think, at this point. And then it's 33 points further back to Mercedes, who are 203 points adrift of Red Bull. And then a huge deficit down to McLaren, who are just 1 point ahead of us, 155 to 154. So, yeah, it's a super tight battle. And McLaren, they have the upper hand once again. There's 1 point in it, so it can still go either way. But, you know, we have Monza coming up. I'm really hoping that can be a good round for us.
I know we were expecting some new developments to come through, but some of them have failed quality control. We'll need to tell the team what to redevelop via the R&D screen.
Alright, let's just quickly run through everything that just happened in the background. Front nose cone structure upgrade successfully on the car, along with the control electronics durability upgrade. We also have purchased a hydraulics weight redistribution upgrade, and the dampers tyre wear upgrade failed.
You're not currently in a rivalry. Sooner or later, you'll probably be asked by the media who you consider to be your rival. Think carefully who you select, as while you will receive acclaim for beating them, you'll lose acclaim if you fail to do so.
Oh, well, that's a real shame. We just had our drag reduction upgrade that we had specifically planned for Monza fail. We do have the rotors upgrade, so that will help us out ERS-wise. But that is all for this one, so I will say thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I really do appreciate it. Please feel free to give me some feedback in the comments, always very helpful. Other than that, I will see you in the next one, and goodbye.